This is your first agricultural TV station, the Agricultural Research Council of Nigerian Television. My name is Joshua Ishaya, and this is the program that tells you all you need to know that is in the water, or rather, the practice of aquaculture. And it's aquafarming once again. On the program Aquafarming, we try as much as possible to tell you all you need to know that is in the water that can be turned into value, thereby earning employment and also earning money. Today on the program, we have a usual fisheries scientist and also a consultant talking about Gabriel Wase. And today we're going to be talking about something quite interesting. That is to say, it's a new form of aquaculture in which everybody's adopting to, reason because the cost of feeding is quite expensive. So what is that, if I may ask? That is the aspect of hatching fisheries. So you end up hatching them, thereby selling them off for gains. Yes, and today we'll be discussing what you need to know in setting up a professional hatchery. Again, Mr. Gabriel, it's good to have you on the show this beautiful day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. In my introduction, I talked about is one of the aspects of aquaculture in which everybody is diving into. Reason because feed is quite expensive and it's alarming, and everybody still wants to be in business. So now, someone is out there watching. Teeming Nigerian farmers are watching and are wondering, what are the steps to step to step to step? What are the implements? What are the equipment? What sort of weather? You know, what are those things that are actually needed for one to have a successful hatchery farm?
Yes, first of all, the hatchery is an important aspect or unit in every fish farm, because it is quite essential. Without the seeds, you cannot be able to propagate to rear. A fish hatchery is a place where fish seeds are bred and nurtured to a level that they can be stocked in the pond. And usually before you set up a hatchery, there are some basic prerequisites. Some of those things that must be put in place for you to successfully hatch or breed your fish and have them stocked at the right time. One of the first things that ought to be done is for the farmer to have a location, a suitable location. And this actually can be anywhere. It could be within your premises, it could be at your back door, backyard. It could even be maybe towards your fence, just a space where you are able to do some manipulations to create a space to be able to make it conducive enough for you to hatch. So once you get that space, the next thing that you should do is for you to know the water that is available, that is in quantity and also in quality. You know, your water can be from different sources. You may be sourcing your water maybe from the well, from the borehole, from the river. You might even be using the rain water. Whichever the source of water, there is need for you to run an analysis of that water to be sure it is suitable for hatching. Of course, you know, for grow out, your fish can tolerate some changes, adverse changes in water quality, but in the hatchery it is not so. Once the water quality is not of good quality, survival becomes a problem. So first of all, you need to know if the water is good enough for you to set up a hatchery. If the water is not good enough, there is still an alternative if you have the financial capability. Because if the water is not good enough, you can install what we call the treatment plant that will take control of these deviations from some of these water parameters that may fall out of the standards. So the water treatment plant will now take care of that. But for beginners, it might be expensive to incur such a loss. So it's good to look for a location where the water is good enough for you to run your production without having to install the plant. So when your location is obtained, and then the water has been tested and proven to be good enough for the setup of the hatchery. The next thing for you to do is to create maybe a building or a facility or an enclosure. You know, usually for catfish in particular, you need a dark environment. Heat is also of the essence because temperature has to be controlled as well. So you need a place that is enclosed so that heat loss will not be rapid. So you have to enclose it. You can make a building. It can even be a batcher depending on the financial capability of the farmer. So if you can make a building, that will be fine. But if you cannot, you can also do some manipulations like I've said. So once the structure is in place, then the next thing for you to do is to procure the hatchery tanks. Those hatchery tanks too can be of different forms. You can be able to go with the normal plastic tanks that are quite common. You can also use the tarpaulin also for your hatching operations. You can equally use small concrete ponds to do that. Once the place is enclosed and you have a facility, you can even use those black GP tanks. Some of them are made for the purpose. All of these can serve that same purpose for the hatchery operation. So once these ones are obtained, you install them, you obtain also your plumbing materials, you fix them up. And again, while doing your installations, you also have to bear in mind what method you want to run. Is it a flow through, or is it a stagnant water system, or is it going to be a recirculatory system? Whichever the type that you want to install, it is at that point that you know what setup should be made. So if you are using a recirculatory system, which is not for everybody, especially those who are just new into the system, who has not brought so much money. So you install your recirculatory system, which is quite good because you are guaranteed of the water quality and even the quantity, because the rate of water loss is quite minimal. So even if you have shortage of water with the recirculatory system, you are covered because only a little proportion of that water will be replaced over time. So if you are using a recirculatory system, you simply install the system at that point. If you are using a flow-through system, you also make your design to suit the purpose. But mind you, when going for the flow-through system, you must be guaranteed of water in good quantity, because you need a lot of water to run a flow-through. And also, if it's a stagnant water system that you wish to run, which is a bit expensive in the sense that it's tedious and also does not give you best results, but it's still an option that one can try to follow. So if it's a stagnant water system, you have to change water periodically, but the rate of water change is not as absolute as is done in both the recirculatory systems and also the flow-through systems. When these installations are in place, you also have to remember you must make provisions, like I've said, depending on the design, for the inlets and then the outlets as well. The inlets are those connections, the pipes through which water is supplied into your tanks, and then the outlets are the avenues, or the pipes through which water leaves the tank for fresh water to come in. And then when this is done, you can as well acquire additional accessories like the aerators, which is also not compulsory, but can help to improve productivity if acquired. An aerator is that machine that supplies oxygen into the water. Of course, when we keep talking about the water quality, there are certain parameters that are quite essential that must not be tampered with. Once tampered with, it affects the fish. And like I've said earlier, in the hatchery in particular, those deviations must not go far from the standard. Once they go far from the standard, your fish cannot survive. And that is part of the problem that many hatchers face, because sometimes they happen overnight or they happen quite sudden, and it's difficult for you to control. And before the control method is set in place, you have already lost some reasonable numbers of fish. So The aerators are there to replace the oxygen that is being constantly consumed by your fish. So of course you know that even as human beings in this studio here, if there is no ventilation and we are many in this place, you discover that with time everybody will begin to get so stressed up to a level that you may not be able to bear.
Yes.
And if it continues over time, you might faint, and thereafter maybe other things may follow, but so that's by the way.
Yes.
So the same scenario happens or applies to fish in the water. So while they are eating, of course you know they are going to eat, they are also going to defecate, so their fecal droppings are there. The decomposition process utilizes oxygen. They themselves are using oxygen also to breathe. So the oxygen that is in water, except that the water is being replaced through the recirculatory system or through the flow-through system or through the aerator. So all these measures are meant to ensure that oxygen levels in water does not deplete, because once it depletes, they cannot survive. In the grow out is different. When there is depletion, you see signs, because you see them gasping to tell you that, oh, they cannot breathe properly where they are. So they try to tap oxygen from the atmosphere. They come to the surface of the water, they gasp. But in the hatchery, it is not the same. So once the level of oxygen is depleted, say you don't have fresh water, you also do not have the aerators to supply the oxygen, then you run into trouble. So those accessories are also very essential. However, there are always challenges, because you know, a lot of farms don't have solar power, which is what we are even advocating at the moment, because the instability in power has caused a lot of losses to many farms. Just assuming that recently the strike action that was embarked upon has negative impact on so many businesses. You hatched your fish and there was no prior preparation. You know, you are not even expecting that the light was going to go off, and it went off for more than 24 hours without you changing your water in the hatch. It's already a disaster, because you are going to count losses. So this is part of the so with all of this put in place, once these are done and you have you know, the professionals to man your hatchery, then your hatchery is complete, you can begin operation.
Okay. Now before I go any further, let me digress a bit. In the poultry, you know, the hatcheries are not found in northern part of Nigeria. They're mostly found in the west, you know. And if you ask questions, in fact, there was one that actually decided to embark on setting up a hatchery because of the distance carrying those birds down to the north was quite hard, so they decided to plant in the northern Nigeria, and they fold out as a result of weather condition. Is this also applicable in the fisheries?
Yes,
or fisheries can also, because I learned that there are places you go to get your stock, or rather you go to get your fingerlings. They tell you that we got them from Edo, or we got them from what's it called now, or your, you know, Lagos and their likes, because we feel they are better as a result of the weather. How factual is this very assumption?
Yes, weather and climatic conditions also have a big role to play when it comes to fish hatchery operations. However, there are manipulations that are always can be carried out to overcome bad weather conditions. For instance, temperature is one major factor, because of course, you know, for every 1 degree rise in temperature, there is a 10% rise in metabolic activities, meaning that even for your fish to feed, it depends on temperature. And that is why when the weather is bad, when the temperature is quite low, during cold seasons, during harmattan periods, your fish feeds very little. They feed less. The cost of consumption at that time reduces, because the rate of digestion becomes slow. So yes, weather conditions have much to do when it comes to the hatchery, but like I've said, manipulations is part of what we use to overcome them. Yes, recently I set up and installed a hatchery in Jos, and before now I have that's my first experience of working in Jos, And before now, I've heard that it is not possible to hatch in Jos. And of course, when I went to Jos, I went around to check some farms, even where they claim to produce seeds by themselves. I realized they were not doing it. They were bringing fish from this south, from the west, and then keeping there. They bring those fish from those other parts of the country and hold them and make cells. And they say they are hatching them, but they are not. But again, I was able to install the hatchery, and I've produced fish, and the fish are already in the pond as we speak now. So it's manipulation. And why are they insisting that it is not possible to produce fish hatch in Jos? Because of the weather, because of the cold weather. But we manipulate, you try to manipulate the temperature, simulate the temperature to what you desire, and you are able to produce. So weather has a lot to do, but we manipulate. Now, in areas where the heat is excessive, we are saying temperature because it is key. And it is not only low temperatures that are detrimental, higher temperatures or extreme, in fact, extreme temperatures are not desired in the hatchery. So you see that if the temperature gets too high, your fish will still die in the hatchery. That is why in areas where you see during heat period, maybe you see around towards the end of February, March, where heat becomes intense in most parts of the country. Your hatchery is supposed to be enclosed, but you have some means of ventilation. So at such times, you constantly leave either your doors or your windows open so that there is interaction between atmospheric air and the heat that is trapped in your hatchery can also escape. So it can now balance what is needed so that the heat within the hatchery does not exceed the expectation or the needs of your fries or your fingerlings or whatsoever you may have at that time. So weather and temperature has much to do, but you manipulate, as I've said.
Oh, interesting. Well, now, in this whole practices you've actually mentioned, you know, like in the poultry industry now, I know that getting good food, getting birds from the right farm, you know, is one of the processes or aspects that guarantees a good listen at the end all. So what practice guarantee a good fingerling? What is that very specific striking? I know there are numerous of them, but there is this particular one that you cannot compromise no matter what aspect of this very process is the most paramount.
Management.
Okay.
I would say management, where you want to key it into the most important parameters. Management is what I would call management, in the sense that, you know, you may acquire very good broodstock that have good genetic composition, fast growth, ability to withstand disease and even adverse environmental conditions. But after the hatchery operation, if your fish are not properly fed, if they are not given proper care or management, you will discover that the offsprings will not do well. Not because the parents are either stunned or have poor genetic makeup, but because of poor management from your staff. So if your fish in the hatchery, for instance, let me give you an example. You see human beings, most times you see some children with bow leg. Some of them are nutritional. They are not, it's not that they were born that way or they had accident or other. It is just a nutritional deficiency during their early life stages that resulted to that. But it can no longer be controlled once they become adults, no matter how balanced their diet becomes. Because the bone formation has been completed and is not strong and cannot go back to its own self. So in the hatchery too, where there is a period where fish maximizes their growth potential. So when you hatch in the hatchery and the quality of the feed, the frequency of the provision of those feeds is not met, then at a later stages you will not have the best out of those fish because they must have given off their growth potential. And that is why some farmers love to go with maybe jumbo sizes of fish. It is not the best in most cases, because except you are buying from trusted suppliers. If you are not getting your seeds from trusted suppliers, I will not advise you to go for jumbo, because oftentimes some persons may keep fish, and when they see that they are not doing well, they may wish to dispose them off as jumbo. But you that comes in does not have such knowledge, and you just procure them and take to your farm, and that will be the beginning of your problems. So in the hatchery, management is very key. If you give your fish proper management, for me, you know, there are some places you go and you ask somebody how old is your fish in the hatchery, and they will tell you it's 4 weeks, it's 6 weeks. If you are lying, I will know. Looking at their sizes, I will know if you are lying. The only way I may not know is if they have stayed for 5 weeks and you are telling me it's 2 weeks. Because of course, maybe you didn't manage them very well, and within you are aware that those fish are supposed to be bigger than what we are seeing. So you can decide to shorten the period. Maybe I will not know. But by the time you start telling me that a 2 weeks fish is 4 weeks, no, it's not possible, because I know what size the fish should be at what stage of growth. So in the hatchery, management is key. And under management, we talk about the water, we talk about the feeding, and the feeding is not just in quantity, it's also in quality. And that is why you see that even amongst the commercial feeds that are being sold, the starter feeds are more expensive. They are more expensive because that is the most important period. That is the key period of growth. That growth can be maximized. And that's why you see, we too, no matter how we manipulate, try to make our own feed, in the hatchery, we don't do it. We don't do it. We have to fall on those commercial feeds because of the guaranteed quality. So management in the hatchery is very key to achieve very good seeds that can be stocked, and then you can have desired outcomes.
Okay. All right. Where I'm going to right now is the issue of let's do a little bit of mathematics now. I'm talking about along that a bush stock can give you close to 20,000 fingerlings, possibly also or thereabout. I want us to do the mathematics, like if you are able to have a successful hatchery, like are you able to do the bush stock and everything, like how much can someone make and have, and probably like 20,000 or thereabout? Because someone once did the mathematics, it was quite outrageous, and they say people who manage fish businesses or who have fish, who have fish businesses are stickly rich, but they are looking very, very small because they are always thinking what's the next thing to do. Yeah, they are usually very what do I call it? Not fat. That's the word. They are not fat. They are always slim. You know. So I want us to do the mathematics now, like getting a brood stock with 2 parenting, and everything, and then you're able to sell each one for 20 naira or thereabout. What's the rationale?
Well, I must tell you that the fish farming business is profitable. It is quite lucrative, but not void of challenges, just like every other business. So when you go into the economic reasoning, I can always tell you that this business is profitable. But before you invest or put in your money, ensure that you have passion for this. You don't just go in because you heard someone say or made an arithmetic for you and was able to generate millions from spending 100 naira. That is very possible, but that can also not be possible. So when you go into the investment with passion, passion is a driving force. That when you come across challenges, you are able to surmount courage to even overcome, even when you are running at a loss. And if you run at a loss and you persevere because you know the passion is drive, which is the driving force, you can overcome and attain the next phase, which will be your breakthrough. So some farmers, because somebody have analyzed for them and they have seen that, oh, there's money in the business, so they are pushing in 1 million, and their calculation is they want 10 million in return. So even if they make 1.5, it's a loss for them because that was not the target. Someone had told them that investing 1 million within so period, you should make 10 million. And because they didn't even run at a loss, they made profit. But because the profit is not near their expectation, they cry and sometimes they fold because they feel, oh.
So what is the feasible expectation that is quite visible? You can't tell me if I invest 1 million and get 10 million. It doesn't really sound realistic.
But that is still realistic because this is farming. Like you did mention earlier, I have used one broodstock to make about 56,000 seeds from one broodstock. So if you achieve a result of such, and at that time we were giving all fish seeds at 20 naira. So if you made, and that was a broodstock that was weighing around 6 kg, but fully matured. So, and that is part of the challenges, you know. Today there are so many hatcheries, there are so many hatchers, and as a result there is difficulty in getting broodstocks that are fully ripe, and most of the farms rely on purchasing broodstocks from other farms. In fact, most of those who keep broodstocks are not hatchers. All they do is they know, you know, keeping a broodstock has relatively low risk. So people go into it who don't even have experience about fish farming, but because of the lesser risk involved, they can still make money. And that is those that have the money, that is where they are keeping the money, and they are still making the money. But what they do, they don't allow the broodstock to stay to maturity, and they start disposing them to hatchers. So you will see that while somebody is telling you that one fish can give you 100,000 seeds, 80,000 seeds, 50,000 seeds, you may be surprised to have from a fish less than 10,000 seeds.
Wow. Less than 10,000 seeds you can get from that same one you were able to get even more. That is the science of it here on your first agricultural TV station, the Agricultural Research Council of Nigerian Television. And of course, I've been discussing with none other person but Mr. Wase Gabriel, fishery scientist and a consultant, and believe me, he has expressed a lot of light when it comes to what you need to know in setting up a fish hatchery. Mr. Gabriel, many thanks for coming through again on the program. We deeply appreciate you. We hope to see you again and again and again, because officially a regular on this program. I was so happy to have you on this very episode.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, on that note, we come to the end of this episode of the program, Aqua Farming, on your first agricultural TV station. My name remains Joshua Ishaya. You can call me Aquaman. On behalf of the crew members who made it possible, the likes of Duba in the MCR, and of course, me up to being that as well. Many thanks for staying true. See you same time, same station. Bye for now.